Going to get started this morning. What we have now is at the 11 o'clock hour, we have the States of Hip Hop Rap panel discussion, discussing the re-evolution or evolution of a culture. And so what we'll do this morning, we have a wide panel here, and we'll just start on this end with Mr. Khalil Thomas, and we'll work our way all the way to Adonis Price. If you would just introduce yourself for 30 seconds or less, and however you want to, and then we'll explain the procedure and we'll go from there. Please pass the mic when you finish, Khalil, and thank you.
Thank you, Professor Andre, for having us here. My name is Khalil Thomas of I Am Classic Hip Hop World Radio from Atlanta, Georgia. Studied at Georgia State University, double major in English, master's in education. Been a hip hop enthusiast all my life. My father was a radio DJ. Went from breaking on the box to, writing extensively about our culture. It's very happy to be here.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm James L. Hill, the chair of the Department of English, Modern Languages, and Mass Communication here at the university.
Good morning. I'm Frank Wilson, the executive director of Albany Civil Rights Institute.
Good morning. My name is Bernard Goins, the coordinator of fraternity and sorority life here at Albany State University.
Once again, good morning. I'm Dr. Stephanie Hankerson, and I'm an associate professor in the Department of English here at Albany State University.
Good morning. My name is Joffrey Wright. I host a radio show called Voices on the local community station here, WUTU 88.3, and I serve as the graduate administrative specialist here at Albany State University.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Toussaint Hill, admissions counselor and recruiter here at Albany State University. Also, hip hop enthusiast all of my life as well.
Good morning as well. My name is Steve Cantrell. I'm a founder of Free Minds Music, a recent participant in Converse Music, and I'm a recording artist originally from Albany, Georgia.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning,
my
sir.
name is Orion Davis. I'm a producer, audio-visual engineer. I'm a hip-hop enthusiast, also a graduate student here, a social work graduate student here at Albany State University.
Good morning. My name is T.H. Biggins, also known as Tiny T, and I am a 19-year-old computer science major, and I'm an aspiring music producer engineer.
That's a long T.
Hi, my name is Tanisha Rowland. I am a sophomore here at Albany State University, majoring in psychology.
Good morning. My name is Ngozi Okitebe. I'm a graduate of McGill Faculty of Law. I'm interested in human rights, and I love hip-hop, and I'm happy to be here.
My name is John Williams. I'm a assistant professor of biology here at Albany State University, and I'm an Uncle Luke enthusiast. I like booty music.
Don't stop, get it, sir.
My name is Stephen Jennings. I'm a junior here in Mass Comm, and I love Outkast. I love Dirty South music.
My name is Kiera Lawrence. My rap name is Mystery. I'm an English major here at Albany State University, and I love Lauryn Hill.
You have a mic?
Good morning. My name is Adonis Price. My stage name is Don. I'm a producer, an engineer, and my major is interdisciplinary studies with a mixture of theater, mass communications, and business management. I am an aspiring production company owner.
Thank you, sir. Please give the panel a hand before we start. And so coming up, we have Stephen Jenkins who can introduce himself. Please have a seat.
Hello, what's going on, everybody? My name is Christopher Jenkins. I'm one of the panelists. I am a radio personality here on campus for 92.7. Also, I'm a radio personality with my kinfolk Nexus right there over at 88.3 FM. I also have a aspiring production company, C Division. You can check that out on YouTube. Google that, C Division TV. Yeah, let's get to it.
Thank you, sir. All right, and so how this will work, there are three of us that are moderators, and we will alternate. My name is Andre Stefan, and that's all I'll say. I'll allow the other two moderators to introduce his or herself, and then I will explain the procedures, and then we will get it popping.
Hi, everyone. My name is Taylor Brown. I am an English major, and I am a junior. My favorite artist is J. Cole.
Always. Lyrical NyQuil.
Whatever.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Khalil Morris. I'm a 21-year-old senior psychology major here at Albany State. I'm also the boss list, or in other words, the president of the Mighty Chi Epsilon chapter of Omega Psi Phi, and Fraternity Incorporated here on Albany State's campus. And I'm a huge enthusiast of hip hop. It kept me going throughout high school. If it wasn't for that, I would have dropped out. I'm serious.
Cool. So how this will function, each person has two individual questions. So we'll begin with an opening question for each individual, and that individual will answer his or her question, and then we'll go to the next person. He or she will answer his or her question, and then we'll open things up for a larger discussion from the flow of questions that we have, and then when we come to the end, we'll close out with that individual question, closing questions for the individual. And so we'll open up with we'll alternate moderators. Each moderator has a group of panelists that he or she will ask questions to. Two of us will be here, and one will be in the audience, and that will be the older of the crew, which is me. So I'll be out there sitting and just watching. For me, beginning here, I do differentiate between hip hop and rap, and so that's why it says hip hop and rap. For me, hip hop is a culture. Rap is a moment, is a way of expression. Rap has a tendency to be more commercial. And so understanding when we ask the questions, that's the place that it's coming from. So the opening question before I leave the stage is, what is the most memorable hip-hop song/rap song or hip-hop/rap artist of all time for you? And that's for anybody to kind of answer, and then we'll get things going with the individual questions. So anybody that wants to answer that can. We require that you hold the mic and pass it so that Ms. Williams will be able to get the broadcast. If you don't use the mic, you won't be heard. And so there should be two mics. I'll make sure that Adonis' mic is working before I leave. So you have the mic. You can start it off, Steve.
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
What's your most memorable hip hop song or your most memorable rap artist or hip hop artist?
Well, the most memorable, I say, act and group is Outkast for me, and the song would have to be Rosa Parks because of the controversy behind it.
Okay, well, my most memorable group would probably be Outkast as well. I like the song Hootie Hoo by Outkast, but my most memorable song would probably be 360 Degrees by Grand Puba. And that's because I like the way he attacked the beat. I like the way he really I like the way he aggressively went at that song, and how there was no break in his flow. And at the time when I was younger, that was something that was new to me. And so he was kind of my introduction to lyricism. So yeah.
There's so many songs to choose from, but for me, I think I would pick "Keep Your Head Up" by Tupac. That song, for me, was got me interested in hip hop, and was just so beautiful and really touched me. And every time I hear that song, I remember being a kid and the first time I heard it.
I would have to say Lil Wayne, Misunderstood, because he explains how he is misunderstood by different people in the world or even society. And as many individuals who we are misunderstood by each and every person. And I can relate to that because growing up, people always thought that I was this and that. And I'm just like, that's not the real person who I am. So in a lot of ways, we all are misunderstood.
Well, being from Savannah, I don't know if y'all know who this is, but my most memorable rapper I can think of would be Lil Boosie. Because that was my childhood playlist. The most memorable song I would say would be Montel Jordan, This Is How We Do It.
Let's see here. So many. I think the most memorable artist to me in my life has been Lauryn Hill. I admired her deeply because, you know, when you're talking about hip hop being so male dominated or so controlled predominantly by men, and for the boldness, or for the boldness that she had, and in stating the messages, I really like the song Zion and other things that things that she would approach it when she came as a part of the Fugees. She didn't approach it as a female artist. She approached it as an artist, you know, and a skilled artist who was aware and knowledgeable. I think the song was Burn, Hollywood Burn by Public Enemy. The reason I say it was most memorable because I couldn't believe that they were so bold to talk about, you know, what was going on directly with Chuck D, and he was just so strong and forceful in what he was saying, and that nobody was coming to stop him. You know, it gave me a sense of strength that someone would acknowledge that, you know, in your face at that time.
I don't necessarily have a most memorable artist because I listen to so much music. Hey, he's waving. The most memorable song for me is the Art of Storytelling by Outkast. I have a number of reasons why, but I'll attack it from a different perspective. So that telling you that that's the most memorable song to me lets you know how important it is in what we listen to when we're young. That was my favorite song when I was 10, right? How could a 10-year-old understand this song and the capacity of it? But my favorite verse ever is Andre's verse. Why? Certain things he said played to my subconscious as a kid. Talking about her being found in the back of a school. That phrase on its own made me wonder and ask my mother questions. You know, so when you think about marketing, the secret is to play to the human subconscious. And it's important what we let our kids feed themselves, because you never know what trigger is going off in the back of their minds and have them following either a healthy food and digestive, routine music-wise, or unhealthy one. And that would probably be one of my reasons why. It was because certain things, certain triggers that I heard in the song in Andre's verse that made me just keep digging and keep digging and keep digging as a youth.
Well, most memorable artist and song would have to go to Nas. On top of the fact that he's a Virgo and I am also, you know. But the song was on his second album. It was written. It's a song called "I Gave You Power," and it's a song in which he raps from the viewpoint as if he's a pistol, like an illegal handgun. And that was like the first, I remember like vividly, like that was the first artist that really made me get into hip hop music. You know, I had heard rap, you know, on the radio and artists, you know, rapping and that thing, but I never forget when I first heard that song, and I had never heard anybody come from that angle, you know, metaphorically, you know, with that much symbolism, you know. And I was young, you know, I was probably like maybe like 13 or 14 years old or something like that. And I remember that song and I was like, wow, you know, how could somebody like just sit there and think and actually come up with a whole song, like, you know, rapping like, you know, as if they're not even another person, but a physical object, you know, and he just gave that object like a whole soul and persona, and, you know, he just turned it in. It was just awesome. Like, I had never heard anything like that. And from that moment, you know, that just did it for me. Like, and I just began to just dig deep, you know, just dig deeper and deeper, you know, and it just really just just get into it. I just dove into it head first. I never forget that. I just loved that song. Like it was just so new to me. Like, I had never heard anything like that. But yeah, that's it. Nas, I Gave You Power. It Was Written, his second album. Yeah.
Before you start, I just want to let everyone know that we would like the answers to be 30 seconds or less. All right, continue.
I was getting ready to just play. I Gave You Power. That's a very ill song. Real quick for me, everybody who knows me real closely knows I don't like lists, top fives, most memorable, because it's all subjective. Because I listen to so much stuff. But real quick, most memorable song for me, right off the top is They Reminisce Over You, Pete Rock and CL Smooth. Because that's one of the first songs that really gave tribute to someone who died in the hip hop community. Trouble T. Roy was Heavy D's dancer. He died on tour, and Pete Rock and CL Smooth, who was Pete Rock's Heavy D's cousin, did a tribute song to him. So that was one of the most memorable. Group real quick, Wu-Tang Clan for me. To have 9 members come together to form one group and all individually be able to hold their own, hold up the W, be able to hold their own, and each release a solo album is incredible to me, and that W is worldwide. Anywhere you go, you see it. So yeah.
Okay, so for me, I guess group would have to be, I'm gonna just say the Dungeon Family. Outkast, Goody Mob, the whole crew. And then song, it would have to be Fight the Power, Public Enemy, because I feel like that's what music, radio, hip-hop has given us an opportunity to do, is to be able to vocally and through the arts be able to fight the powers that be, so much that it's how we open up our radio show every time, because that's what we're doing, and that's what we have to continue to do, because if not, our voices in this culture will die. So fight the power.
Well, I'm going to go a little bit outside and talk about a moment, one of my favorite moments. I don't know who's familiar with UTFO, but they had a song called Roxanne. And that was one of my first experiences with a rap battle, because of course it was Roxanne, but then it was Roxanne, Shantae had something to say, and then they had something to say back, and then it was Roxanne's Revenge, and so that was the very first time that I found myself really engaged with hip hop in the sense that, or rap music, because I was 8 in 1979 when Rapper's Delight came out. So I remember before this was a genre, and then after it was a genre. And so that was the first time I actually found myself waiting to see who was going to get the latest 12-inch, to see what the response was going to be to the other person. And so that is definitely when I really got introduced into some of the elements of hip hop.
All right, I've been sitting here thinking, because I'm a hip hop fan, but I don't think I go back and span as long as y'all do. But it's one that I do relate to, and it's called City High. They didn't have a lot of albums, but it was one song that kind of touched me in my moment. It was the City High anthem, because they talked about a school that was underserviced. They didn't pour any money into it, and talked about how they didn't need their money to survive and make it. So I would have to say City High would be mine.
For me, it would be Outkast, I Love the Way You Move, mainly because it talked about individuals and gave everybody some proper respect, being their own individual instead of being put into a group. It's like the big girls need love too. Everybody needs some love, So, and I think that so many times we tend to put people in a group instead of appreciating the individuality of everybody.
I obviously came to hip hop late, but I guess the song that's most memorable for me was Tupac's "Trapped," because it established for me the archetype of the trapped individual, the trapped animal in the ghetto, in the concrete jungles that we talk about, and that archetype, I think, is throughout hip hop.
I think for me, I was wrestling with this between Rakim and Nas, but growing up in the way I did in the circumstances, it would definitely have to be Nas, because at a young age, Nas was able to describe or explain a lot of things that were going on around him, and do it so eloquently. For instance, off of Illmatic, he says, I woke up early on my born day. I'm 20, it's a blessing. The essence of adolescence leaves my body. Now I'm freshened. My physical frame is celebrated because I made it 1/4 through life. Some godly light thing created. No one, not even Rakim, was saying things like that at such a young age. So it definitely have to be Nas.
My turn? Oh, okay. Well, the most memorable hip hop song to me would be The Autograph by J. Cole. Yes, I love J. Cole. Okay, I love J. Cole. But that's the most memorable song for me because it emphasizes the significance of loving oneself. And I have had that issue growing up, especially when you don't have a lot of people to support you, because my mom is the only supporter and she is my biggest supporter. So when you have everybody else except for one person not wanting you to succeed or not caring if you do, you know, it gets to you. So J. Cole really helped me through a lot of those issues. What about you, Khalil?
Y'all gonna hate me for this one, but I'm gonna say Kanye was one of my. He's definitely probably one of my top artists of all time. He was the first album I had when I was growing up. I was probably like 9 or 10 years old. But one of the most memorable hip hop songs I've heard is a song called "Faith" by Kendrick Lamar. I don't know if many people have heard it, but he was the first rapper I really heard attack faith and like his sense of faith and his religion and how easy it is to lose it, but it's so hard to gain. So that was a real big moment for me. It caught my attention when I wasn't really paying attention. It made me play it back a couple times. So that would be my song.
Adonis Price, everyone.
No. Sheesh. My favorite, my most memorable artist duo, again, for the third time, Outkast. And the most memorable track that they have for me is, I'm sorry, Miss Jackson. For that reason right there. That reason right there.
I like that song.
All right. There's so many memorable songs, but for me, of course, my most memorable artist will be Lauryn L. Boogie Hill. My mother played her for me when I was younger, and when I got a little older, I went back and found that same CD, took it from my mom, and I ran in the room with my cousin, and we listened to it and stuff like that. Her favorite song was Zion back then. My favorite was Do Wop That Thing, but I think now one of my favorites by her is Final Hour and Lost Ones. Just when she starts off, it's funny how money changes situation, miscommunication lead to complication, my emancipation don't fit your equation. Like, she just came in so hard off of that. So she definitely impacted my life, even with doing the research symposium on her and having my first hip hop conference, researching her. She enhanced me as a scholar as well. So I love her.
All right, let's move along to the regular questions, please.
Okay, Dr. Hill, I know you went to the Harvard Hip Hop Archives, and so I want to ask, what is your research interest in hip hop and rap culture?
Thank you for the question. I began after becoming aware of many of the artists there, began to think about hip hop and developed an interest in research. Actually, I established here at Albany State University a faculty learning community on hip hop for personal reasons as well as educational reasons. I had in the group Dr. Hankerson and Professor Andre, and they taught me a lot about hip hop. But the research part of it, I became very interested in the hip hop artists' use of literary figures of speech, onomatopoeia, allusions, a whole lot of the literary devices that one does not think normally about hip hop artists using, but they really do. And so that's one of my research interests. I also became interested in the use of religion in hip hop by artists. It's almost another pillar of their lives in the concrete jungle because it's a salvation stage for them. When you listen to many of the artists and even people like T.I. or DMX incorporate religion into what they do. And another research interest that I have particularly is the sociology of the ghetto or the concrete jungle as it's represented by various artists, West Coast, East Coast, and so forth.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hill. Ms. Wright, what role has radio and radio personalities had on the development of hip-hop culture? More specifically, what has been the role that radio song placement and advertising had on the popularity of rap music?
Thanks. So when I think about radio personalities and their role in hip-hop, I feel like it's a very significant role because when we think back historically, radio for our people was a way for messages to be delivered. Oftentimes when we didn't have television sets, we had radios where we could get messages, whether it was to organize us or just to inform us of things that were going on in the community. So when you talk about radio placement, I feel like radio placement brings that commercial aspect to it because you stated advertisement. So when we listen to a lot of radio, a lot of times that is what we get is commercialized music with a lot of commercialized marketing strategies for us to take on these traits. However, I'm glad that I'm able to be at a community-based radio station where it's not commercialized, where we have the freedom to take back our voice and not just do so much music, but actually do some talk radio, because oftentimes that's that aspect that we don't get when we listen to regular radio stations. We don't get to hear what we feel about issues that are affecting our community, that are affecting us as a people. So when music becomes commercialized and we know that hip hop wasn't something that mainstream media originally even wanted to touch. However, when they saw that it was doing something good and great for the community, they said, okay, well, we're going to take it and we're going to do this to it. But at the same time, the people who were listening to it and the people that were controlling it, they became commercialized as well. So now we have radio personalities like Charlemagne, for instance. And I'm pretty sure everybody's familiar with The Breakfast Club. Mm-hmm. He's one of those people who's out of the box. And he's not like a lot of the other radio personalities that you hear who always have a comedic twist, kind of like Steve Harvey, Ricky Smiley. He's actually addressing issues and not just saying this is a problem, but trying to come up with solutions for the problem. So it's not just a bunch of jokes, oh, we're going to throw some issues in here and we're going to go back to the funnies and to the music that is continuing to trap our people. But as a radio personality, you have to know your place as well, because before our music was being played on the air, our people were listening to you. So you have to continue to be that voice of reason between the music and the people.
Yeah, I agree with that. Mr. Jennings, Southern culture is currently the hottest rap trend, with a more nuanced and commercial appeal than forefathers like Goody Mob and Outkast initially experienced. Who leads this newer, more aggressive Southern rap brand? And have these artists built on the legacy of those forefathers? And how have they deviated from them?
Hello. I thought a lot about this question. I hate to say it, but Future is leading it.
Oh, wow.
Like, I really do hate to say that, but it's not like his music is like Goody Mob or Outkast, because Goody Mob and Outkast, they brought soul in their music, like consciousness and stuff. And Future, they don't do that. It's just the turn up party. Let me tell you about what lean I'm sipping. And like, for artists that I think he doesn't get any shine that's doing justice for the South is Big Crit.
Yes.
Like, he has that soul and that consciousness that Outkast and Goody Mob have. And to me, he has a mixture of both, of hard like Goody Mob and like smooth like Outkast.
Okay. Dr. Williams, congratulations for winning the hip hop pillar, by the way. If you had to develop a hip hop education course that utilizes today's artists as sources of literature, who would be worthy of inclusion and why?
Okay, so keep in mind that I'm a biology professor and my major interest is in health, particularly health disparities. So I would probably develop a class, an interdisciplinary class that looks at hip hop as a supplemental text to health disparities that are taking place in communities of color. I don't think I would have a particular artist or set of artists that I would include, but rather sets of songs and sets of topics that are pervasive in hip hop that we would discuss that have a health implication. So, for example, sexual violence against men and women. Women primarily, but there are some songs out there that discuss sexual violence against men by men. Issues of suicide, which is a health issue as well as a psychological issue. Drug usage and the physiological changes that happen when drugs are taken and why they lead to some of the behaviors and activities that are seen in music, you know, popping mollies or the burn that comes from heroin use, those types of things. And looking at all of that in a way that can identify whether or not we can use these texts to kind of understand the state of our community or our communities, and whether or not this is actually teaching us more about what's going on, and are we ignoring it? If we're ignoring it and it's right there in our face, then there's something there that we could actually tap into that could actually benefit our community. So that's what I would probably do. I'd probably add groups like NWA, of course, with the sexual violence piece, or 8 Ball and MJG with Break a Bitch College and Pimps, where they talk about physically assaulting women in order to make them submissive. You can throw a rock at any artist and find a song about sexual activity, STDs, that kind of thing. And so that's kind of the direction I would take it. It would be interdisciplinary, so I would also have psychology professors, sociology professors come and teach it as well. And I would probably try to make it a special topics course so that it can have some flexibility in terms of what we could introduce, so that whatever is of interest to the students as well as to the faculty, we'd be able to implement it.
Okay, all right.
We should make that happen, man.
We really should. That was really great.
I'm down.
Yeah, me too. So Miss Okedebi, did I do it right? Did I pronounce it? Yes. As someone who has traveled across the world, what has been your experiences and encounters with people in hip hop and rap culture? More importantly, have you seen any growth or change in attitudes from people about hip hop and rap?
I find that there has been a change in the attitude. But one thing I think is very interesting is how much hip hop really depends on where you are. I think it's really interesting when you look at like the rise of hip hop in the Middle Eastern community, for instance, and how it's being treated there versus in Africa, how it's being treated in South Africa. So I find that the attitude when it comes to Canada and North America, I know it doesn't seem like it, but I do think it's getting better in many ways. Even though we're still facing criminalization of hip hop artists. I talked about yesterday how rap lyrics are still being used against rappers in a court of law, even if those rap lyrics have nothing to do with the charge that they're faced with. So even though that's happening, there's still attention on it. We even saw recently, like PBS actually even had a special on that problem. So I think things are getting better, and people are starting to realize that hip hop culture has had extremely unfair treatment in society. But in some ways, things still stay the same, right? I mean, we still have these problems. And when you look at what's going on in the Middle East in terms of how MIA has been treated for her hip hop, we realize it's still a lot. We still have a long way to go.
Okay.
Here you go.
All right, Mr. Goins, what impact has hip hop and rap had on your personal life as well as your career?
Let's see. Personal life. Well, I was my parents kind of kept me away from rap and hip hop. Mostly, I was surrounded by mostly gospel music. Here and there, we'll go to a family function and we'll have a little MC Hammer on every now and again. But nothing real hardcore, shoot 'em up, all that kind of stuff. So really, growing up, I really didn't get much of it. I can say that once I got into my teenage years, I started listening to more so the P. Diddy, Mace, More Money, More Problems. And now I do remember when I was a little younger playing Little League football, some of my coaches used to come out there, they'd have Master P playing, Mr. Ice Cream Man, and I would listen to some of that stuff. But I would have to say that I didn't really get a big influence on it as far as my childhood is concerned. Now, as far as my career, I kind of listen to it every now and then. I'm more of an R&B fan myself. But I've taken some songs from hip-hop that kind of inspire me. As far as Eminem, You Only Get One Shot. I talked about Nelly, even when he had what does it take to be number one?
He just wanted to be successful.
Right, that's it. So I didn't really. I just use what I can from hip hop, all right, and take it and just use it to make me better. That's all I did.
All right, Miss Patrice Smith, what is the most important thing that you appreciate about hip hop culture? What is the most conflictual thing that you struggle with about the rap culture? Is a difference in the questions.
Okay.
Caught it?
The most important thing that I appreciate about hip hop culture is the unity. I love how it unites all cultures, blacks, whites, Asian. It unites everyone. Everyone feels that same one love for the culture of hip hop. And your second question was, I'm sorry.
What is the most conflictual thing that you struggle with about rap culture?
The thing that I struggle with the most is I love how it unites. However, some of the lyrics, I'm that person. I don't like lyrics where you talk about I'm going to shoot your mama and I'm going to kill your dad and your sister. I don't like that. I like, rap music that unites us, that, shows love for one another, that elevates our pride. And I guess the more hardcore, explicit rap is the type of rap that I have a problem with, the kind that promotes violence instead of downing violence.
All right. The next question I have is for two people. It's for Mr. Christopher Jenkins and Adonis Price. Can you name 5 artists that represent the future of hip hop and where it seems to be going?
5 artists. Well, my 5 would be this is no particular order or whatever, but J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, Big Crit, Drake, and Future. Okay. I picked those 5 because believe it or not, like my sister was saying a minute ago, I do believe that hip hop is getting better again. We had a long time, there was a long stretch, there was a lot of like bubblegum rap and, a lot of trendy rap, and it just like flooded the market, and they just bought into it in the society. You can see it in society too, like it's so trendy now, but with artists like J. Cole and Big Crit and Kendrick Lamar, and with the amount of success that they've had and the way that the people respond to them, I think is like a phenomenal thing. And like my co-host and I talk about sometimes, my man Jeremy at 92.7 here, we feel like it's like a golden era is resurging. We feel like people are tired of that same old thing, like just on the radio constantly. Like people want to hear that substance again, like how it was back when we had like the Rakims and Nas was on the rise and Outkast was first coming out the gate, and Goody Mob and Dungeon Family and those artists like Trick Daddy and people from the South and in the early West Coast, how it was, how you felt that energy and that inspiration and that truth in the messages that they were delivering, through hip hop. I feel like people want that again, and and I feel like we're on the right track to achieving that. But it's still, and I put Future and like Drake and in there because I feel like it's still a place for those type records though. It's always been a place in hip hop for party records and good feel good type music. That's kind of like what hip hop was kind of started on. We just need a balance, and so I don't feel like it's anything necessarily wrong with those type of artists, but I just feel like it's too much of that type of artistry going on right now, and people are, they're just tired of it, and I can tell, and I feel like we getting back on the right track, to get that feeling back in hip hop, and I really see that coming about again, that golden era. Yeah.
Okay.
For me, let's pray that I get to 5. I'm gonna try to go down a tier from what he was saying because I agree with what he's saying so much. Chance the Rapper,
Okay.
Tyler the Creator, Rory,
Rory, all right.
Vince
Staples,
yeah, and Vic
he's an
Mensa.
underground artist. And who?
Vic Mensa.
Vic Mensa, got you.
I wanted to include one that I was interested in. Has anyone heard of Lil Yachty?
Oh yeah.
Now he's
Somebody said no.
Okay. I want to know. I included him because he is changing hip hop, unfortunately.
You get cold as Minnesota
Because
with him.
in a satirical way, he is getting on. Like he's getting in the ears of a lot of people on this campus. And I was playing a Vine on accident. Somebody overheard it and they were like, "Cold in Minnesota." It was like, oh yeah. I'm like, no. But yeah, basically those people I named in the 5, they're bringing something completely, fresh. It's not brand new, nothing new under the sun. But I like what they're doing. I like what Save Money is doing. Chance the Rapper and Vic Mensa. I like that they're a collective and they're unsigned. And Vic Mensa is working with some big heads like Kanye West. Who else is he working with? He's working with Travis Scott. I wish I included Travis Scott in my 5, but yeah, people like that. I'm really interested in how they're gonna bring this new, fresh sound to hip hop because Tyler the Creator has been quiet for a minute. If you haven't noticed, Vic Mensa's been quiet for a minute. If you didn't notice,
He working with Kanye.
Vince Staples hasn't been quiet.
Vic
You
Mensa
gotta go
working with
look up
Kanye.
his newest stuff. But I love those. I guess they're sophomores now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sophomores. But
Tyler
yeah.
Creator kind of seasoned, but I get what you're saying. He got a couple albums out.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna go on to Professor Andre.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning, Mr. Wilson. How are you, sir? Right. This question is for you. As director of the Civil Rights Institute, has hip hop played a role in the way that the institute shares history with with youth culture, and how has hip hop culture built on the legacy of civil rights movement in the U.S.?
Well, I think there are two things to answer that. Let me answer it this way. The civil rights movement went through several transitions, I think, as the music has. We had an era that was led by Dr. King, that was pretty much nonviolent, turn the other cheek, and then came Stokely Carmichael and H. Ralph Brown, who were going like, no, Black Power. We're going to have some confrontation, and then there was the Black Panther Party, who took the whole civil rights movement to different levels. The same thing has happened with the music. The music went from a very calm message at first. You know, you had your, say, MC Hammer, your Too Legit to Quit, those kind of things. And then you came out with Public Enemy, with NWA, who's carrying a whole different message. What I find, however, is that there was and is a positive message. Even sometimes it looks very negative in its form. Each of those groups, both with the music and with the civil rights movement, had a purpose and a place and a time to meet the needs of the people. While I've never been an advocate of violence, I think it's always important that the voice of the people be heard. And sometimes there was a piece on one of Marvin Gaye's earliest records that said, sometimes I got to do wrong before you notice me. And I think that's sometimes part of the thing that happens with the civil rights movement and with the music. When the message was calm and you're saying, we just want to get along, people didn't notice. We had to get in the face and take a different kind of message to get the responses that we were looking for. And so the messaging, both with the civil rights movement and with the music, had to be turned up just a bit in order for folk to react in a way that we were seeking in the beginning.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Kiara Lawrence, what have you learned about hip hop and rap as a scholar while at Albany State University, and how has what you learned impacted your life as an MC, spoken word artist, and a beat girl?
Hip hop has impacted me as a scholar at ASU, just from having your 1101 course, you know, being able to write about my favorite song and in depth and basically decode those lines and having it basically evolve into something much larger. So hip hop has basically sparked research and inside of me and wanting to investigate different things. And now when I look at text or anything of that nature, I try to find a correlation, find that interest again, or I still have it. And as far as being an MC, it's impacted me in like many ways. Just sometimes the scholarship will go over into some of my songs. It'll help me remember and go from there. As far as beat girling and stuff like that, I haven't done that in a minute, but surely as an MC, it's impacted me significantly.
Thank you very much. This question is for Dr. Stephanie Hankerson. Dr. Hankerson, with cultural appropriation and music being a hot button topic, is there truly a space and room in hip hop music for white artists to be successful without mocking or appropriating black culture?
Certainly. Because if you're doing true hip hop, it should be a reflection of who you are, where you're coming from, and how you see the world and where you want the world to go. So even though, of course, it comes from the African American tradition or the African diasporic tradition, if you're doing it truly, like I say, I believe Eminem does it truly, because once you really think about it, How many hip hop artists will say, I don't like my mama? Or I want to, or I'm angry at her, or I'll harm her. I mean, one of the greatest anthems is by Tupac Shakur, Dear Mama.
Right.
So to me, when I heard him, when I heard Eminem, I said, oh, he's honest. He's himself. He's talking about things that are pertinent to him. And I think that's, so you can go into, some of the problematic things that he talks about, but at the least I could say he's being himself. Is when you have artists who try to not emulate the culture, but appropriate the culture, as you use the word, that's where things get off basis. And sometimes when I hear that, I think to myself, if only if you were yourself, you would be so much more successful at what you're doing.
Thank you very, very much. This next question is for Khalil Thomas. I must say we want to thank you, the CTE and the English department wants to thank you for your pushing of our mission and what we're trying to do on classic hip hop. So we salute you, sir, and your team, and thank you very much.
Salute you back.
This question, the actor, activist, and retiring MC Mos Def says in his song Hip Hop, Invisible Man has the whole world watching, and I impose there. Where you at? And that's what it actually says. I'm high, I'm low, I'm east, I'm west, I'm all over the map. From your own personal growth and involvement with hip hop culture, what does the world see when they watch, look at, and witness hip hop culture today?
Very interesting. I think they see a myriad of different people, because the culture has taken on a persona that represents not just one, but many different characters. Whereas in the past, as someone stated earlier, hip hop was this thing where you could have enough space for an NWA and also a De La Soul. And then it kind of changed to everyone copycatting a particular style. But right now, I think there is a difference between a successful Sean Carter. You see Sean Carter not only on stage, but you see him on courtside seats, and you know this is where hence he came from RC Projects. So on one hand, you say, okay, this is hip hop. Wow, we got to respect this guy because he can move multitudes of people. And then you have some artists that, I live in Atlanta, and recently there was a murder, an artist, I didn't know of him. His name was Bankroll Fresh. But they don't put his name up to say, I don't even know his real name, but it says rapper killed. It just says rapper slain, or, rapper arrested. So I think society looks at hip hop culture in general as a plethora of different characters, depending on what setting that you're in. Yes, like I stated earlier, there are business settings where it's Kanye West or Snoop or these icons in the music. They get the just rewards for being astute businessmen with an acumen for being able to make money off their craft. And then you have other people that profess to be rappers or embrace the culture who are just out in the public like you and I, and they may kind of grimace or they may kind of turn away, because the images they project on television show us in a different light. So I think they still see us in many different characters, not so much as how we see each other, like back in the days, being able to differentiate between a positive MC, a negative MC, a feel-good MC. I think they just see us as, okay, maybe that guy might harm me. Or, wow, this guy, he can move mountains because he's in touch with the community. So It's a very good question, Professor Andre, but it's just my opinion. But I think they just see us in different stages or different variations, depending on
I mean,
the setting.
it's one of those that's open-ended, but I just wanted some kind of insight in that, and I appreciate what you offered there. Thank you, sir.
Indeed.
Next question is for Tiny T, which Khalil calls her Tiny L, and that's an inside joke.
Long
But
T.
That's long too.
and so, as a young woman who loves hip hop culture, what concerns do you have about the use of the female body in rap lyrics and videos? And also, what positive images of women do you appreciate, and what would you like to see more of?
Okay, I would like to first start off by saying I appreciate art, period. I don't feel there's a right or wrong way to do anything. So if a woman wants to, I guess, flaunt her body, who am I to say that's the wrong way to portray herself? But to relate back to the question, my only concern I have right now is how prominent the female body is in rap, like how it steers their career. Like, the proof will be Lil' Kim and Nicki Minaj. Anaconda is Nicki Minaj's most viewed video on YouTube. Why? Because the song really wasn't that amazing. It was the images that were shown in the video of basically her like, bust all open. So
buttocks.
I mean, that's my only concern I have about that. I mean, not to say that she's wrong for doing that, but it's steering her career. Because her as an MC really isn't that good. To answer the second part of the question, it just depends on what you see as positive. Back again to what I was saying, I don't think what she was doing was negative. But women that I would like to see more of are some more Janelle Monáe's probably, more Lauryn Hill type women out there, just to create a balance,
Thank you.
Rhapsody.
Thank you very much. Next message is for Steve Cantrell, who, if we don't know who he is, he's a local MC that is, I mean, I respect his craft, I respect his evolution. So if you've never heard anything by him, you definitely want to check him out. And so, Steve, should we let go of the idea that hip-hop/rap is a platform where artists are supposed to bring their A game lyrically on every song? Or should we just embrace the fact that the politics of rap have changed and just accept the current style of rap for what it is?
Yes, let it go. This is why I say that, because it's not the politics. Politics isn't what drives culture. Politics drives business. So we have to remember first what hip hop is. Hip and what it consists of. It consists of painters, artists, graph writers, b-boys, b-girls, community people that don't do anything but music, that have other gifts, rappers. It consists of a whole body and community of people. And we have to embrace the fact that barriers aren't real, right? And if somebody finds a way to put up a real barrier in front of you, it's very possible to knock it down. Who knows what breakdancing was called before it was called breakdancing? Even people on the panel. Who knows it was breaking? Before it was breaking, what was it though? It was called rocking. Why? And that was one of the first elements of the hip hop culture. Rap music is new. It was graph writers that couldn't rap. Maybe they could dance a little bit. So they started dancing. They called it rocking. Why? Because people in the hip hop culture were dancing to rock music. They were dancing to jazz beats. That's where breaks came from. That's jazz and rock. So when we try to put this barrier on rap music, but we want it to be a part of the hip hop culture, we have to let that go. Why? Because these kids are geniuses. Why would you hinder a genius mind by saying, yo, your beats need to sound like Wu-Tang's beats, or we don't like you? You know, like that's not how it works. That's not how art works. Art knows no barriers. Art knows no boundaries. How we move and how we teach ourselves is how we can change the corporate aspect of it, which a lot of them are doing. Wu-Tang isn't the end of the road. We have Chance the Rapper, who we mentioned earlier, who he's not signed to anybody. Most times you hear that, you think, okay, he's a part of an indie label. No. So, and not a dig at you, I was talking about this earlier, not a dig at the statement you made. There are things that are new under the sun. There are things that haven't been done. Every people that say, man, everything's been done, you're not doing anything new, people are. He's not been signed to anybody, and what he just did was promote the new Chicago White Sox hat. If you're a baseball person, you know how old-fashioned baseball is. They don't change anything. They don't even like you to flip your bat a little bit, right? That's an unsaid rule in baseball. Yo, you ain't supposed to do that. So for them to allow a rapper from Chicago, Chirac, come in and change their baseball cap, even if it's just for a short period of time, that lets you know things haven't been done. So you go find out what has been done so you can fill that space. We gotta stop telling kids everything's been done. That's hindering them. Let them blossom. Let them be what they need to be. And that's what we need to do to hip hop, is embrace the fact that it's more than rappers. So the culture of hip hop is very healthy depending on where you look. It depends on where you look, where you go to find what it is you're trying to indulge in. She can't find a new artist that she may like that may be awakening for her if she's only looking at the dirt and the mud of the art community. It depends on where you look. It depends on where you go to find it. And we're doing the same culture that sometimes we bash at this service if we don't get up and look. You're doing the same thing. If you don't like Young Thug, if you don't like Future, you are Young Thug and Future. That aspect of it that you don't like, if you don't get up and go look for what it is that you want. So I think we do need to let it go.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And now again, what we're going to do here, I'm going to extend it additional 30 minutes. So we'll end the panel at 1, and we'll back everything up for 30 minutes. And so we'll be fine because we have some space. And I don't want voices not to be heard. But what I want to point out here to those people that are here thus far, whereas people love to say that hip-hop is this and hip-hop is that, look how we've had a panel and no one has said any cuss words, no one is drinking any 40s, no one is holding any crouches, and everybody is learning. And we just heard from a man that's Albany raised, Albany born, and this is what intellectualism is about. So I really respect that answer. Moving along, now I've been salivating since we got the state of hip hop. I've been salivating since we said we were going to do it for one reason, because I wanted a panel with Toussaint on it and his father on it. So after we get through these two questions for Toussaint and Orion, I'm going to come back to a question for both the son and the father, because I really, really want that. So Toussaint, this is for you.
These are last.
Hip-hop culture has been known to talk about one getting his or her weight up. With that being said, Nicki Minaj's popularity has increased and even stabilized. She is currently one of the only, headlining female rappers that has male rappers on her as featured performers on her tour. What accounts for her popularity and gain of capital? What does this popularity and gain say about current rap industry and the black female's body's weight?
It's funny, when I first got this, when I saw the question, I laughed because she's not even really on my radar of what I listen to, especially female MCs. I listen to Rhapsody, I listen to Invincible, I listen to Jean Grey, those type of MCs, not FemCs, MCs.
Right.
So when I got the question, it was funny because I'm a person that looks at everything, even if it's something I don't like. I do analyze and try to see why I don't like it or what's going on with it. But real quick, Nicki Minaj, her popularity is for a few reasons. Number one, a lot of times when you are best, not saying she's the best, but when you're the best of something or the only one of something, people gravitate to it. Right now, in mainstream, she's really the only female MC, a female artist, I should say, in mainstream. That's that big. So a lot of people gravitate to her for that reason. The second reason is obvious. We know sex sells. We know violence sells in mainstream, whether it's music, whether it's movies, cinema, etc. So being that she, as T touched on, promotes her body, sells sex, talks about, being a freak and doing this and that, that's popular. And the third reason is, I think, timing. When she came up, she was able to get with, Lil Wayne and that company, Drake as well. And, their popularity kind of sprung her. And then she kind of took it and ran with it. And then getting with pop culture, starting to do pop music, just made her explode to another stratosphere. So those are a few of the reasons I feel that she's as popular as she is.
Good, good. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Mr. Davis, this question is more so for you. I won't ask you the same question that Kentrell got. And I'm forming this right now because we've had several conversations and interactions before. And so I know one of the things that you are about is trying to push a certain type of artist and help young people as far as their image and their sound goes. And so when we start to think of the state of hip hop, the state of rap, what sound, what motivates you to want to work with an artist, and how do you begin to develop that artist, and how do you see your craft mixing with the artists that you work with?
Wow, great question.
Thank you, sir.
One, I've heard it mentioned a few times. We talked about consciousness or lack thereof in the music. One thing that's very important to me is when we talk about hip hop, we talk about the future of hip hop, we talk about sounds and music, things that we can all relate to. That's a universal music, is a universal language. I always tend to think about where are we going, where are we headed? What's the purpose? If I'm using certain tones in the music, is it even if the tones are aggressive or I'm using a certain tone, how is that affecting my system internally? When the gentleman was talking about health and how is it affecting me? How are certain words or certain images that the young people see, how does that affect them in the future? Because they're the future leaders. They're the future aspiring artists and MCs and everything. What are they going to be talking about? What is going to be their conversations? What is going to be their outlook on what's reality to them? We know it's subjective, but what is going to be their reality? Who's controlling what they're able to look at on a regular basis? A part of the question is about bringing an A game. Let's talk about that. But who's controlling what's the A game? The A game in the past was what a gentleman mentioned about Nas being able to articulate certain things in a certain way that you could relate to. But now it's cut on a beat and say anything. Pop Molly's, twerk or whatever, and it's just selling. But who's controlling that? Who created a mainstream and an underground? You know what I mean? When we're talking about, so for me, when I think about that, when I think about an underground artist, I think about that artist that's a creator, not a competitor. There's a difference. Someone who wants to create and do something that has not been done, or who likes the craft of what has been done and then works to better themselves. One thing I can appreciate about when I'm working with artists and those who are open, even when I think about the past, some people label old school and things of that nature, but to me it was people who were being creative and they weren't afraid to share their creativity and as well as stand on their own with their creativity. You didn't see a lot of features originally with Eric B. and Rakim, whether it was Nas, whether it's NWA, whether it's the list, Jungle Brothers, it was so many. X-Clan, you could go across the gamut and see, and you appreciated each one of their pieces of artwork, and you could love that and say, man, I'm listening to Latifah right now. What you listen to? I'm listening to Brand Nubian. I'm listening to, but everybody, it wasn't, I'm buying this record is hot because this person features on it. I don't really have any skill, but we're working with this particular producer. Everybody, let's go after this producer. Everybody, let's go this way. So, yeah, so my when I'm looking to work with an artist, a person who understands that at first. Usually I have that conversation with them. You know, like what are your interests? I mean, what are your interests? Not just who you listen to. Okay, that's great. That's good because we all listen to different things. But what are your interests? What do you want to say to the people? What do you want to leave that the young generation can listen to? What do you want them to see? Because, you know, your first impression is your only impression. Not saying that you can't grow, you know, but then what do you want to do and how can we build on top of that? You know, but again, I do think it's important. I do think it's important what we do and what we say and what the kids see. You know, because being a school teacher, that's what I have to deal with. I have to deal with if they see turned down for what, and you're trying to get them quiet to pay attention in the classroom, and they see 100 million views of turned down for what. You know, not to knock the song because it's creativity, but what they are seeing, what's being promoted, what's the money behind the machine? You know what I mean? Who's creating the machine that we don't see in those corporate offices? You know what I mean? That's really controlling the situation. That's attempting to place those barriers in front of us. You know, so that's for me when I'm looking to work with artists, those who are not afraid to be out of the box, as well as I let them know that I support them being out of the box, and then if we can collaborate and have a certain level of agreement on where we're going, where this is headed, I'm willing to work with them. You know,
Thank you.
forever.
Thank you. Now we'll go into the flow of questions, and before we get back to Taylor and Khalil, I'm gonna open up mine, and we'll change a little bit. We'll ask two floater questions after mine,
Okay.
and then what we'll do, we'll open it up for the audience and see if the audience has any questions, and then we'll come back to the panel and let everyone make a last comment, and then we'll close things out. And so the salivation is here. This question is for Dr. Hill and his son. And that's not to make you name.
How you doing, sir?
But we want to make sure we know. And now, so I'm forming this. I'm forming this question right now. I want to acknowledge, even though there's something that Dr. Mills and she saw us perform the piece that we did earlier. She saw us perform it on Thursday, and she asked, "What was the lowercase I that I say in there?" And so we do nothing here by ourselves. It's no me. It's a group of people. So who I must acknowledge before I ask this question is my cousin Thaddeus Jones, who's over here in the hat. He came all the way from Orlando. He often does research for me when I need to know something that I don't have the time to spend on. He'll research it. He'll send me what he finds. And so we have a group of people, a collective that we work with. So this question is in correspondence with him and my own personal experience. I wanted him to look some things up for me that I knew was there. And so he sent me a list to confirm that I was right. Now, this question, I don't believe in N-word. So I'm going to say the word. And this is about nigga. And so I watch a lot of black sitcoms. I could probably say if there's a black sitcom, I've seen it. All the way from something like That's My Mama, all the way up to the more popular Jeffersons. There's an episode of Sanford and Son where they're in the courtroom. And Red Fox stands up and he's talking to the officer and he says, "With all these niggas in here," right? There's an episode of Good Times where the word nigga comes up. There's several episodes of the Jeffersons where George just spazzes out and says nigga, nigga, nigga a lot. And so also when I was growing up, my father and his friends used the word nigga. But it was always a negative thing. That nigga ain't this, that nigga ain't that, right? And so I early on began to understand that use. And so now, Dr. Hill, as you've lived, how have you seen this word metamorphosize? And what concerns do you have with it today when we start to talk about hip hop culture, rap culture, and the use? Tucson, as someone being the younger of the men, how have you seen it grow, and what concerns do you have with it, and how do either of you see a utility of this particular term at all? And we'll start with Dr. Hill and then go to Tucson.
Well, I grew up during the age when it was not only nigger, it was a lot of other designations. Nigger, of course, being the umbrella for our culture. I have seen it evolved into different definitions of the word, even to the point that it became an endearing use of the term. I think that when we look at the concept of nigger as it relates to hip hop, that I can see all of the uses of the definitions taking place. But when I look at the word and the concept as it relates to our culture, I always have to go back to the stereotypical images that were created by white society about African Americans way back in the time, and how those stereotypical images have been appropriated, have morphed into what we see at the current shows that you mentioned, That's My Mama, or other African American shows, some of the most ridiculous of which I think are the shows about hip hop and the wives and some of the other images that we get there, which is a whole different slanting of what nigger means to me.
Right.
And if we had to get rid of it, that would be one of the things I would want to get rid of. But as an individual who has grown up with the word, I've seen it change and acquire different definitions. And in terms of its use, I think it should be used when it's appropriately situated in our culture. But just to use the word, to use it, I think is something that we should discourage. But I began to learn about hip hop when I stumbled upon a book called The Big Payback. And that's the business side of hip hop. And that business side encourages that use of those designations of African Americans in our culture. So I think that if it's contextually appropriate, it's okay to use it, but otherwise I would not recommend.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I like that when you say that you grew up with, because that's how I think of hip hop. I grew up with hip hop versus growing up on it. You saw? Y'all gonna have me follow Doc? For real? He's watching, sir. He's watching. It's funny because as I came up, I came right in the era when it was endearing. It was a word that, when you're in school, or it's like, oh, what's up, Nick? And he give it to you back. So to say, how about you give it to him back, man? He was supposed to give it back to you, right? He gave it back. He gave it back. I didn't hear him. He gave it back. So it's funny because it was a word that was used all the time. And it meant all kind of different. You said it in different. Somebody tell you something crazy, be like, nigga, what? And you didn't think, a second of it. But as I grew, as I got older, my perception changed a little bit because I thought about something. I said, well, we don't have a problem calling each other that, but what about other races and other people? How can we get mad if they call us that if we're calling ourselves that? There's this whole thing about, N-I-G-G-E-R, take the E-R off, put the A on it. The A is ours. If they call us with the E-R, that's the hard E-R, that's them. Nah, we don't like that. Well, if it's hard to distinguish that, why are we using the word? And then when I had children, his grandchildren, my thought process changed again. I said, well, hold up. Because, okay, now I got to be careful. I can't say it when I'm on the phone with my homeboys because Landon's right there or Coleman's right here behind me. So if I have to do all of that, let's start thinking about pulling back from the word a little bit, and I have done that.
Cool. Thank you, sir. And so now Taylor and Khalil, you get one question to ask us, a floater question, and anybody can answer this question. And then we'll come to the audience for any questions, and we'll close things out.
I am excited because Professor Andre and I have been fighting over this question for weeks. This is for everyone. During the Harlem Renaissance, white patrons and consumers supported Black artists and writers to allow them to freely explore their craft. Whites also came to Harlem to get a better understanding of Negro cultural expressions of the early 1900s. In the same type of cultural enterprise, how does hip hop and rap culture reflect similar white voyeurism that we have seen with other Black and brown arts movements? What effects has this white voyeurism had on the state of hip hop and rap culture?
First of all, I think we have to kind of go back and look at all the different genres of music that have been attributed to African Americans. They were never accepted at first. You know, bebop, jazz, rock and roll, they were not widely accepted when they came on the scene. Most even to this day, a lot of our greatest jazz artists were accepted in Europe before they were accepted in. Al Jarreau is a great example. He was popular in Europe and couldn't get a break in the United States. And so I think when we talk about the voyeurism, it's always kind of been like, let's wait and see where this is going. But more importantly, where's the dollar in this for us? There's always been an economic piece tied to each one of those genres of music, because that was a time, for instance, I'm dating myself, but we couldn't get our music on nothing but WLAC out of Nashville, Tennessee. And when you couldn't get WLAC out of Nashville, Tennessee, you were in the country. And they would sell the Black music with covers of white artists.
Wow.
And so as the music evolved, there were a couple of Sunday night television shows, Ed Sullivan and Steve Allen. When a Black artist was on either one of those shows, everybody was in front of the TV, because that was very rare. And as the music evolved, as jazz evolved, as rock and roll, as bebop, and artists like Thelonious Monk, artists like Miles Davis became popular, they were not widely accepted, but there was a commercial piece that they used. Right now, they still sample some of their music in all these shows. On some of their commercials, they're still using the music for their commercials. So the exploitation came about because they became popular because of the exploitation and the economics that it brought, more so than for the genre of music. It wasn't the accepting of the music, it's what the music produced for them.
Okay.
Yes, I would like to follow up, amen, everything he said, but comparing the Harlem Renaissance to now, it's appropriation. The reason that whites went to Harlem was to find out what was going on and how they could use it. There's no different with hip hop today. And if you read The Big Payback, which is, I suggest to everybody, you learn the behind the scenes negotiations that go on with the business side of hip hop. I mean, the breakup between Russell Simmons and Q, for example, and why that happened, and how that might have affected music in a different way. And so our society seems to appropriate anything that it can that's economically profitable.
Anybody else? Okay. I saw a hand. Oh, no. Okay.
I completely agree with what's been said, but I want to play a bit of devil's advocate because I kind of wonder a bit to myself how much the fact that we do have people who are white listening to hip hop music has enabled them in some ways to see our experiences and has maybe in some ways made it so that when we look at, we're having conversations now about microaggressions, we're having conversations now about Black Lives Matters, it's not only Black people. There are people who are there. And not there just to say, oh, I was there, and not always there to try to take the movement, but to listen and to support. And I wonder how much that has to do with the fact that they listened to maybe to Kendrick Lamar, or the fact that they listened to the Roots. So, there is a negative side, but I guess I'm kind of wondering if there is a bit of some way of a silver lining.
This has been going on for some time now, since the Greeks went into Timbuktu and got the knowledge from the Africans there. This has been going on. Once, I believe that other cultures, if we're going to say Caucasians, once they see that, I think they are attracted because it is an art form and it's new. It's happened with the blues. Of course, it's happened with the plantations. You see, the iconic fiddler playing the fiddle, and he really can fiddle. Let's lend him out to plantation, and you become popular. And then it becomes, around the time where you have the sheet music, and I have his composition on sheet music, W.C. Handy. I'm gonna sell all of these compositions and get rich, and it goes on and into the early stages of rock and roll. You have Chuck Berry discovering rock and roll, and you have these young men coming in from Europe, studying and grafting his style. And of course, they coming in as fans because they love the art form. But then you have, okay, we can make money off of this, and it's all the way now. And I was so disgusted. There was I don't watch Grammys. I don't watch any of these award shows. It's too much. But there was one when this is an art form started by African Americans, but I guess one winner was Macklemore and the other one was Iggy Azalea. And I'm like, how can that be? And I had a friend from California, and we were discussing this, and he said, how can that be when you have all of these talented artists? And no, it's not about color, but it is about color. Because the perception is that this is the best. You get an award not for being the least, but for being the best. And this is the best. So there's a situation going on. And although I agree with you, but the exploitation of a culture, of a people, it needs to stop. I don't think it ever will. It needs to. But what happens as a result of that is what happened with Kendrick. You get people who are inspired by that to say, you know what, this can't be. I'm going to go do music the way I want to do it. And then once you start doing music the way you want to do it for you, you produce a gem, you produce a jewel. And, and that showed on Kendrick's last work. And he was accredited with his success for being a brilliant artist.
Okay, is there anybody else?
Just one last comment about the Black Lives Matter. What is happening with Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter is the same thing that's happened in this society from the beginning. What happened with the Civil Rights Movement, it was overshadowed by the Vietnam War movement. Same thing is happening with Black Lives Matter. If we turn the attention to All Lives Matter, then that diminishes what Black Lives Matter really means.
All right.
Let's open it up for questions in the audience, you guys. Let's see if we can do that real quick. Are there any questions from anyone in the audience? And we'll come back to one more question and close things
Is there
out.
a mic down there?
I'll get one.
Okay.
There's one right there. Let's see.
Oh no, it was just for the.
I just want to start off by saying thank you for sharing your perspectives. As scholars, hip hop consumers, and practitioners, how important to you is it that we not kind of subscribe to the hegemonic process of talking about all of the elements in hip hop? I know we've kind of been focusing on rap today, but all of the elements in hip hop from this binary good or bad, positive or negative aspect, when from the outside, people who are not a part of this culture see it all as the same. Like when Kendrick did that performance at the Grammy, there was a strong backlash from the white audience because to them it still looked like what we might problematically label as negative or problematic. And so my question to you is, in your positions, how important do you think it is that we kind of not fall into that same trap of talking about it in this binary way, positive, negative, good, or bad?
I think that things that people don't understand, they usually fear or find fault with it. And you have to stay true to what it is that you are doing. There's an audience for everything. From the civil rights side of the house, for me, I just think it's important that whatever it is that we are doing, we cannot be the event of the week. We cannot be a Baskin Robbins. We can't be the flavor of the month. It has to be a focus and a purpose for what we're doing. We cannot be all over the place trying to please everyone or to be concerned about the opinion. Whatever it is that you do, there will be an opinion. And if you sway with every opinion, you will find yourself not being focused, and one then begins to question your purpose. Is it to achieve a goal or is it to be popular? And most times we have to make that decision. Do you want to be popular or do you want to be right? I think it's important that we keep anything that we do, whatever the movement is, whatever the genre of music is, whatever the art form that we have to stay true to whatever it is that we're doing in order to achieve our goal, or else we will find ourselves instead of having a movement, we will find ourselves being moved.
Does anybody remember when Ice-T and Soulja Boy were beefing? All right, so when Soulja Boy put out his response video to Ice-T telling him, all the stuff he said, one of the things that was interesting to me was the last 2 minutes. And that is, he actually says, if you don't think that I'm doing hip hop the way it should be, then mentor me, guide me, and teach me. And I think people miss that because they were so caught up in the beef that they're not realizing that these young people, particularly in this generation, are reaching out for mentors. And if we're not willing to show them the way, we can't get mad at them for being lost as we see it. And so one of the things I'm starting to realize, especially when I'm teaching my students, and I'm listening to some of the things that they say and how they address me and how they address each other and that kind of thing, I can't necessarily say what they are doing is good or bad because it's their reality. But I can show them, some other things that are out there as well. And so I think within hip hop and I think within communities of color in general, we have to get past the labeling that binary 1 to 0, black and white is either good or is bad, and start looking at it as, let me understand you as a person and where you're coming from. One thing I will say that I've noticed about a lot of rappers who are talking about money and flash and fame and all that stuff there is, if you look at their backstory, they weren't doing it they were doing it because they wanted to give themselves a better life than they had before. So they had noble intentions. And we have to look at the intentions of those individuals and start using that to kind of guide what we think is good or bad or move towards a more positive light, rather than just labeling and sitting back in our couches and judging, but rather going out there and meeting them where they are so that they can see, some other ways that things can be done.
So I would have to agree with what both of the gentlemen said, and to kind of go off of what Dr. Williams was saying, that sometimes we feel like what's understood doesn't have to be explained until you come across that person who doesn't understand. So for us here, we know that hip hop is more than just the MC or more than just the DJ. It consists of dancing. It consists of the arts when we talk about visual and graphic arts, even to fashion. So it does go back to that education piece. And like Dr. Wilson was saying, some people just aren't gonna get it. And we have to get the fact that some people aren't gonna get it. And for those who do get it, we have to continue to move it, like he said, before somebody else comes and moves us. So if we want it and we know that it is something positive, it is something good for our community, for our culture, because that's why it generally came about, is because there was a lot of bad stuff. And we needed something good to edify our people, to elevate them and take them to the next level. So we, as the ones who hold this knowledge and this information, we have to continue to do things like this conference, and we have to continue to not let our voice die because of these powers that are fighting against everything that we come up with that is good, that is brilliant for our people, and trying to capitalize on it and say, okay, well, our artists can do stuff like not be signed to labels and still make great music for the masses, and stop saying, okay, well, I want to be a part of this label. No, it's okay. You don't have to be a part of a label or fall into these categories or groups to be successful and to have a voice and to bring value to your community, and not always say, well, what he said was bad. Well, it might sound bad, but sometimes you need that harsh reality for you to see that it's a lot of bad stuff going on and nobody is saying anything. So this is the way I'm getting your attention. So if it looks bad, so what? But the message behind it is good.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah.
Oh, one of the things that, oh,
Oh, she has the mic back
oh,
there.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
He
We
gave
were
me
all
the
like,
mic and he
wait.
walked out. Sorry. One of the things that I wanted to kind of go back and touch on is the use of the N word. I know that it comes from a very bad place, so to speak. But in terms of being an artist, and even in terms of the power of the word and the way that we use it amongst ourselves, there's something to say about others not being able to use the word in our presence. There's something to say about that type of power that exists. Like, you literally have to skip the word if you're in the presence of other Black people. I mean, you might use it a million times a day at your house or at the workplace outside of their presence, but you literally have to censor yourself. And the thing that I think on the Black side is that we don't have to censor that. But it's not like we could use it in our music. We could use it. I mean, to say that it's a term of endearment is doesn't give it enough enough of its girth to me. But to say that to say that we've taken that power, and even though we fought not to be considered as such, we kind of made it into something different. We've taken a stressor, we've taken something that has had a negative connotation, and we've evolved it into whatever it is now. Because we're not always regarding people in a negative when we're using it. And so I guess my question is, how can we not how can we take this word and not allow our voices to be linear, so to speak, like not to have it. I'm trying to find the words to express the question that I'm trying to ask, because I know that we touched on it, but I went to the restroom, so I didn't get to hear what some of the elders had to say. But then also I kind of wanted to hear what the youth perspective was in terms of actually advocating for the use of the word.
I think it starts with the person's their personal outlook that they don't even know that they have on it, right? So let's say I have a white friend and I don't want him to use the word, but I turn around to him and I say, I don't call him my nigga, I explain to him how it's endearing. That's a double standard, right? So I think it goes back to that person. I think it's a lot of people that want to say it's endearing, but they don't want other people to use it in an endearing way to them. I think, and it's almost in a way, just playing devil's advocate, in a way, it's like saying, you're not black, you can't come to this all black, this Black Lives Matter movement. It's like the same thing when you think about it. Just from trying to speak from a youth perspective, I think that's what it is. I think we have to polarize it. I think it's either we're gonna either get rid of it, in our communities, or we're gonna accept true acceptance of it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's either or. It can't be in the middle anymore, or we're gonna keep having these disputes. We have to look at it one way or another. To me, as a youth, I just turned 26. So I think it's one side or the other, and I think we need to pick a side in our community. We're either going to be okay with it and truly use it as an endearing way and be okay with other races calling us that, like, hey man, what's up, my nigga? And understand, like, I know he ain't trying to be that way. Like, he's telling me what's up. I know he's not. That's just from speaking as a youth. So it's like, am I going to accept it like that? Or am I going to say, look, you're not going to use it, but I'm not either. And we just need to choose a side, from my perspective.
What I have to say about that, what I have to say about that is, hip hop is truly a teacher, because Kendrick Lamar was the first person to actually bring the word negus to my attention. Negus, negus, and he taught the history of where the word niggas was actually brought from. Negus was a word used in Egypt and Ethiopia, Somalia, that area of Africa, and it meant king, someone of a high esteem. So when I first heard that, it was just like, wow, like, should I really be offended if someone called me a nigga? Should I? I mean, I don't like, cause in all essence, I mean, we could flip that and say, they took a positive word and made it something negative. Yeah. So should I really be bothered if they call me a nigga? I mean, like, no lie, I say nigga on a day-to-day basis. And it's not anything demeaning in my, when I say it. I mean, it's just like another pronoun, like, sup, nigga? Or that nigga's this, that nigga's that. I don't know. I have no problem with the word at all. In terms of other races using it towards me, I mean, it's still something that I'm trying to get over, because I don't know, man. Like, it depends on who's coming to me. If Billy down the street, and I know he doesn't like black people, and he walks past me like, yeah, nigga, no, you're not getting away with that. you just not gonna get away with that. But like, I have some white homies, who's real cool, and they like, yeah, this nigga so and so and so, and I have no problem with it. So I guess it just depends on the situation and your sensitivity level. Oh, and if I don't like, bro, if I don't know you, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying, but it's all about the situation, what's happening at that time for me. For you to call me.
It is one of those hot topics, and for me though, I just don't. For me, if we try, this is why I don't say the N-word, because by saying N-word, we negate it, and it's not going anywhere, right? It's not going to go anywhere. For me, it's more important is how do we think of it in our heads? How do we really, really think about it in our heads? And if it holds us back, then I say we discard it. But if it's one of those things, for me, it's not a dichotomous thing, got to be either or. right? As you know, but I don't want to hide it from children. I don't want to hide it from people. I don't want to say N-word because the N-word, there's negotiate, there's never, there's neither, there's nucleus, there's nexus. There is a whole range of N-words that are in English. So when we say the N-word, like there's just one. No, for a child, the worst N-word in his or her life? No. No is child's nigga. You say no, that's no.
Well, I just want to just really quickly, so everybody else can talk. In African American literature, any kind of literature is not just about a word. It's about the social context. It's about who uses it, how they use it, and so it goes back to James Weldon Johnson, who wrote the autobiography of Ex-Colored Man, where he actually talks about it's fiction, but in it he talks about different classes of black people, and then he says, well, I was at the pool hall. They use the word nigger. Oh, for these people, it's a term of endearment. That's what they say to each other. You better not say it. So, and then you go fast forward to someone like Richard Pryor, and how he used the word to somewhat take the sting away. Then he made a decision. Okay, I'm not going to use it, and then he went back to using it. So a lot of it has to do with, as I say to my students, you have to ask yourself, how much does it cost? For me personally, I think it's too expensive. But for others, it may not be as expensive. And so that is about a personal preference. However, I don't think it has to be either or because let's say you have a significant other and you call her sweetie. And some strange person comes up to her and says, hey, sweetie. You're not going to like that. Why? Because that is a term of endearment that you made especially for her, and it rests upon the social context of a relationship you have with her. So for many people, using the word nigga, you have to lay it upon that social contract, that interaction between two people. Now, when I talk to my students about it, and they say, well, how can you say the word nigger between black people is okay, but if a white person says it, then it's a problem. I say, again, you got to add in history. Historically, when whites have used that term, and you look at the list of what they mean by it, number one on the list is not, oh, that's a term of endearment. No, number one on the list is some furniture about to be moving because you're insulting me. Now, they may mean it as a term of endearment, but that means they have to take the risk of going down that list in your head and making that determination. So we tell our children, I have 2 children, 10 and 13, we don't believe in bad words. Like there's no such thing as a bad word, but there is such thing as an inappropriate word, a word that's not used in the right context at the right time. And so that word for us is just not appropriate for them. One day, perhaps it will be. I don't know. Everybody has their own thing, but I think that is complex because language itself is complex.
As a 71-year-old black man from Moultrie, Georgia, nigger was never a term of endearment. Nigger was an insult. And it was meant to get a reaction, which it usually did. I'm open-minded enough to try to accept what the young folks said, that, like the young lady said, she has no problem with it. I have a problem with it, black man calling me a nigger, white man calling me a nigger. Because the way I see it, nigger is nigger. You spell it with an A, you spell it with an AH, you spell it with an ER. It does not change. And so, for me, I understand it will never go away. 2 reasons. Because black folks are never going to go away, and white folks are never going to go away. And so, nigger's going to be here forever. And, if you smart, you become a smart nigger. If you're rich, you're a rich nigger. I mean, you don't stop being a nigger. The one thing that I always say, you cannot legislate how a man feels about you. You can put all the laws, you can pass all of the resolutions. You cannot legislate the heart. And so For me, when I hear the word nigga, some furniture gonna start moving. Plain and simple. I may be too old to fight, but I ain't too old to shoot.
That's real OG. Let's take one more question right here. I like that. That's real OG. I real.
Nowadays it's real easy to get distracted about a lot of things like the word nigga and like oh, what you saying in your song? Cause I'm an artist, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, so I'm real passionate about these things, you know, listening to y'all speak on this panel, you know what I'm saying? So excuse me if I have aggression because like my first hip hop memory was a Tribe Called Quest when I was 3. So hip hop means something real. I'll be dead right now if it weren't for hip hop. So I think the biggest thing in the black community is the fact that yeah, we can say all this other stuff, but when the last time anybody ever pulled up at someone's house out of your comfort zone and sat down and said, hey, what's on your mind? When? Like, that's the problem. It's like it's no communication. It's like everybody always assuming. You could be sitting with somebody in the hood. Like a woman could be here with somebody in the hood and they be going through all this stuff and you still not get him because you never sat down and say, what's on your mind? And really not try to think for him or feel for him, just really take and realize that it's okay to be ignorant to things and not know everything. You know what I'm saying? Everybody, like black people, we have this thing like we have to, are y'all the most scholarly? Y'all went to school, you didn't go to school. You know how many times I got people that that go to Albany State, always been, you know what I'm saying, like never really sat down with me and say, hey, I'm like, I got everything you got. You went to school and got degrees and all this stuff, but I have more than you, and I'm still more willing to sit down and listen than you. So who's the one at a disadvantage right now? You know what I'm saying? And it just like, I even listened on the panel, I know I've been in and out, but I have yet to hear anybody say, yeah, I put up to that young man and see what he was thinking. Like, I used to be against Future and the Southern music until I actually sat with those guys and like, tell me your story. Oh yeah. This when I part that Zan. It would make me do this. Oh, so these things that broke into that type of insanity to make you do this. Okay, so we have a deeper problem. So let me sit with you, brother. And it ain't even about preaching to you. Everybody want to lecture. Nobody wants to be preached and lectured to. Who does that? You know what I'm saying? Just sit. Because my parents, I have great parents. And an example of that, they never sat down with me and said, what's on your mind, baby? Never, ever. But they're great parents. So it's a generational thing and a peer, like on a peer level thing. Everybody, like we were taught as black people, you gotta really think. Even when Martin Luther King came down here, like we didn't march with him in Albany. You know what I'm saying? For a reason. And those people, those people that live, oh, don't do this. This what you gonna do, because this what you. It's that same type of thing. So you ain't really trying to sit down and really be like, okay, I know what through experience and fear, what I'm conditioned to be like, and what I know what all these things are making me to be like. Let me put all that away and just sit and see what you naturally, what God is putting you here to be without me being here, putting out these barriers. You know what I'm saying? And blocking your mind. You know what I'm saying? Because my son, he's not athletic. He's not all this. I'm not. You need to go do this. I'm finna sit here. Okay, baby, what you want to do? You want to go on YouTube? What you like to do? What you like? Tell everybody.
I like to go on YouTube. Yes. Awesome Disney toys.
Anyway, he loves planets and stuff. So I'm gonna let him do that. You know, even though I think it's kind of nerdy and geeky, it's not up to me. You know what I'm saying? And that's the problem. And like that, the reason why I talk about that because hip hop that's the only black thing we have, the purest black thing we have right now. And they're trying to take it away from us. You know what I'm saying? They already took rock and roll. And this is the only thing we have. So I can keep going back and forth talking about music and just on a psychological level because that's what it is, and it's art. You know what I'm saying? Even the stuff that they talking about, Zan the club, they're talking about something. You just have to really put yourself to the side and listen. You know what I'm saying? That's it. Everything that we could talk about, everything else, but I promise you, we do that, sit down and listen to these brothers and sisters and really sit down and just talk. I'm pretty sure everything else won't even matter. You know what I'm saying? Nothing else will matter. Because you gotta keep in mind for years we've been doing that, having that same talk. Nigga, this nigga, we've had the same talk and nothing's been getting done. So when people gonna realize you need to talk with these people?
Thank you, sir.
Stop being scared, you know. So
Thank you, sir. I hear that in the spirit that it is, because one of the things, and believe it or not, that's one of the things that we are about here. This is why we do this before we close it out. That's why we say circle the elements. We didn't talk about all the elements. What we're trying to do is fit the panelists that we have and specialize. But one of the important things, my students or anyone that I work with, and I've worked with most of the people on this panel in some way or another, whether it was business or whether it, was like Lawrence and Adonis. I really am about, and we really are about trying to find spaces and have conversations. And so we have a big vision. We'll have at the end of the thing today, we'll have an advisory council. I'll say come to that. You can talk about things that you would like to see as we continue to grow, because that's really what we are about. And we're about the inclusion of all voices in all ways. And we do provide, from my estimation, you can talk to two of the students that here. You can talk to any student that's on this panel that's worked with me. We provide great mentorship. Whatever my students are interested in, that's what I'm willing to do. That's why you see these two people here. This is why they up here. That's why we start every conference off a student speaking. That's why we continually have students in whatever lanes they want to ride. There's a lady by the name of Taylor Turner. She wanted to do registration. That's the only thing she wanted to do. She's been there the whole time. She just left to go to a meeting. But whatever it is you're wanting to do, that's what we are about. That means the community. So now you can become our community liaison. So make sure you speak to me before you leave today.
I will.
All right.
Actually, I was speaking with Lila too, so I was going to talk to you anyway.
No doubt, no doubt. So let's close this thing out. If everyone gets 30 seconds to make his or her final comment, whether it's wanting to be about the question that you were supposed to be asked, whether it's wanting to be about how you see hip hop reflected in your children or whatever, but everybody got the mic, one mic, 30-second bite. It's your world.
I rap for listeners, blunt heads, fly ladies, and prisoners, Hennessy holders, and old school niggas, then I'll be dissing them. That's a quote from Nas, and that simply means that from his upbringing, what he was bringing his gift for was for everybody. It just wasn't everybody in his cipher. That's what he saw. And I think being true to oneself allows you to manifest and grow as a person, not under the pretenses of what someone expects you to be, but what, like the brother said out there, what you were ordained to be or what you were destined to be. And I think if we continue in that vein, not only in hip hop, but in anything, you'll be successful. And then you will be able to pass that torch on to the next person.
One of the questions that I did not get asked, I was supposed to be asked, was what I would like to see in hip hop continued or created. And I have 4 words. One is consciousness, another is artistry, another is authenticity, and the final one is legacy.
Thank you, sir. Smooth.
All right. It is my hope that hip hop can get back to its more positive roots. One of the questions that I was going to be asked is in reference to my daughter. For her sake, I do want hip hop to be more positive so she can have something that can influence her in a very, very positive way, and she can do great things.
I want to thank you again for allowing me to be on the panel. For me, any art that's worth anything is life affirming. And I know a lot of times people think life affirming means it has to be positive. No, sometimes you're mad. Sometimes you do want to punch somebody. Sometimes you do have a disagreement. Sometimes you feel sexy. Sometimes you feel funny. And so I want that authenticity that affirms the life that we live and the level of a life that we could achieve if we learn how to break down those barriers that people talk about. So as long as hip hop is going into the direction of affirming life in whatever form it takes, I think that that's where we'll find hip hop being the best that it can be.
I just want to say, going to what the brother in the audience was saying, that communication is very important to any relationship. And we've just developed a relationship even within this conference. So as long as we continue to strengthen our communication with one another and not let our voices die, because hip hop is a communication piece for us, whether it's through dance, song, music, the arts, like we are able to communicate and express our true selves through these things. So never down yourself or never be afraid to be who you are because you're afraid of what someone else is going to say or think. It's okay to be who you are because each and every one of us are unique and we all have a gift and something to give, whether it's just being a consumer or a listener. So never feel like you don't have a place because everybody has a place.
Thank you for allowing me to be on the panel, Professor Andre. Right now, there's a struggle between old school, new school. But instead of thinking old school, new school, think true school. Because if you're true to the music will be true to you, and then that will allow your art to flourish.
I want to say thank you to Dr. Dre for having me on the panel. I love what you're doing for hip hop. I think we need more of it. Because we need to have more of these conversations between the generations. Like Brother Frank and Dr. Hill. Because there is a disconnection. But through events like this, we're able to see that we do actually have like a lot of the same viewpoints on this hip hop thing, and so having these things like this, we can get rid of those barriers, that really never even existed there in the first place, and we can keep this thing moving forward in a positive light. And I'm just glad to be part of this.
Also, thank you for having me on the panel. Thank you, panelists, for your outlook and opening up. Thank you guys for your questions and for you guys for listening. It's really, my close is really the same thing. These guys and gals have been saying. I just think we have to keep breaking the barriers. I was asked for my closeout question, where do I see the evolution of hip hop in 10 to 20 years? I think that depends on us. We can either stay up under the ceiling, and never change mainstream arts, or we can stop telling these kids that they can't do that and they can't do this and let them flourish, truly flourish, and break down that ceiling and change what mainstream and corporate, the corporations are feeding us and our kids. We have to allow them to be free, be as they are, encourage them to do wherever it is, even if their beats don't sound like 90s and 80s hip hop. Let them play with their artistry so they can truly grow. And we can't accomplish what these two brothers said to get what he said done if we don't encourage the youth to just be themselves so they can tear down the ceiling so we can change mainstream media.
It's an honor to be here amongst everybody in this building at this time. Two things real quick. First thing is, let us not forget the children, because whatever there's, this hip hop and even how social media and everything else exists today, it gives many people a platform who will really have to go through certain things to even get that platform. And so when they see us on those platforms, let's make sure that we're careful with what we're giving them to see. That's very important. And number two, entertainment. A lot of times when we think about the negative side of things, people quickly say it's just entertainment. But then when you see the hypermasculinity of men or the hypersexuality with women, you have to think, why does that entertain you? And when did that become entertainment? So let us be cognizant of that so that we can hopefully have a brighter future and create that future for our children.
I would just like to say that I'm very thankful for the experience. I never had a chance to, be around this many people who are very passionate about hip hop and music, such as I am. But my statement I would like to say is hip hop is not dead. I've been hearing that around people saying hip hop is dead. It's not. That's pretty offensive when you have a lot of young artists sitting on the stage in the audience and you're saying hip hop is dead. So that's all I have to say.
I would say that hip hop is changing, but the changes are not necessarily bad, because as we think about it, the world is changing. Each generation is changing. Stuff that we have now, we didn't have back then. So right now we have to kind of take a different approach, but still kind of have that same purpose of uniting everybody. That truth and genuine type aspect that they had back then, we should still have it today, but with slightly different changes to it, because you have to appeal to different generations, because the generation is very different. Like they said, you have Snapchat and all this. We should use it as an advantage.
I just want to say thank you to Professor Andre for having me on this panel. Thank all of you. One thing that really stuck with me in listening to everyone was my brother here said to be a creator, not a competitor. And on the way walking to the auditorium, I have my daughter here with me. And on the way walking up here, she said, Mama, when I grow up, I want to write songs. So, you know, I am excited about the creators of not only hip hop, but just our younger generations to be the creators of our future. So, but thank you so much for having me here, and thank all of you for allowing me to share this stage with you.
Thank you for having me. I just want to speak on the question, my closing question, which was if I could pray to the hip hop gods, what I would ask for. And what I would ask for is that there be a change in hip hop so that we can actually really hear gay, lesbian, and transgender rappers. Because there's been such good queer rap that is not played in the mainstream, that's not talked about, unfortunately, in a lot of conferences, and there's not space for. And so I would pray that that music can get the recognition that it deserves. And the fact that sometimes it's even sampled without those artists being given credit by our community, and they're our community. These are, Black, gay, lesbian, and transgender people, and we're commercializing off of them, right? So that's what I would wish for.
I just want to say thank you as well. I've really enjoyed being around this collective brain power on the stage and in the audience. I had the same closeout question. If I had to pray to the rap god or the hip hop gods, what would I ask for? And what I would ask for is for individuals in hip hop culture to recognize hip hop as a teaching tool for making our communities better, and as a complement to other institutions in communities of color. Not everybody is comfortable in church. Not everybody is comfortable, or not everybody will have access to college. Not everybody will be selected by fraternities or sororities, but all these institutions have impact on the community. Hip hop is one of the few institutions in the community where you can pretty much come as you are for the most part, and you may be able to find a space. And so I would ask that we start using this space to help those who don't fit into or don't have access to those other areas until they can have access to some of those other resources. And I would ask for 69 Boys to come out with another album.
Yeah? What's the title of that album? No doubt.
My question was something about the extinction of hip hop. Like, why do I think it's dying? My problem would be with the commodification, like these big record companies that just come in and they'll take, a group like Outkast, and just using them as an example. They'll take a group like Outkast, they're soulful and whatnot, but they'll probably want you to be like, I want you to speak more on the drugs and the holes that's in your community or whatever. Don't give me the little good turn up stuff, the nice smooth music. And like, what I want the hip hop community to do is to take back our music, like what Jay-Z is trying to do and have those outlets or whatever. Like, we literally need to just not trying to worry about being on a major label, but just trying to like come out independent, stay that way, and you would never change, and your music would never change, like without a big guy in a suit saying, well, we need this more for the television show or commercial or whatever that we're trying to push. So that's what I want, and also a better balance in hip hop and rap. Like, we just need a balance. Like, I know it's never going to go anywhere. I know Future's never going to go anywhere. But like, I would rather have Big Crit competing against Future on the radio. Like, so.
Cool. Thank you, sir.
As far as my closing question, I can't remember it, but I just want to touch back on the opening question when I said that I didn't. There were so many memorable songs to discuss, and one that's been sitting on my mind for a while throughout the whole panel, which I was kind of upset that I didn't mention, was Kendrick Lamar's "You," and I think that that definitely represents something that's grand. You know, being able to talk about the complexity of self-love and even the complexity of love and hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Hip hop isn't all negative, but it surely isn't all positive. So we have people viewing hip hop as something that's completely bad and stuff of that nature. Yeah, sometimes it's bad, but you know, when is life all good? You know, when is loving somebody all good? You have your ups and you have your downs. So I think that it's always significant to have a song like that out, even with Kid Cudi, "Soundtrack to My Life," and once again talking about self-love. So I just think that those songs are definitely significant. I want to touch on that a little bit.
First off, I would like to apologize for my previous statement. I said that there was nothing new under the sun, and my man caught me on that BS. Oh, no. It's all right. I still want to apologize for it because I'm really trying to identify myself as an artivist, which was, the term was given to me by just hearing about Black Rap Medusa. Like, I heard about her. I was like, who is that? Like, you can co-sign with me on that. As soon as he said, I was like, who is that? Tell me who that is. I want to know what this is. I want to bring something new to art. I want to expose the hip-hop industry. I want to monopolize it. I want to bring something new to the table. And I want to bring all the underground artists out and give them a platform to stand on and give them a room with no ceilings. Like, I want to give them, not even a room, I just want to give them space to be free. I want to give them freedom. And how can I give someone freedom when I can't define it?
But that's what work is about, sir. That's what work is about. That's what we're working on. We're working on that. It's a beautiful thing. We want to close things out. People got to eat, so we can build thereafter. Let me take care. Thank you, Adon. So take care of a few house business. We will extend. Lunch will be from 1:20 to 2:20. When we come back, Dr. Linda Mills will talk about Nicki Minaj, so you definitely don't want to meander too far and come back and hear that. The lip sync battle has been canceled, so that won't happen. And I still want to, I'm going to approach some people about the advisory council, so be on the lookout. If I roll up on you, that's what I'm trying to talk to you about. Everything else will be bumped back, and we will be able to get things done in a timely fashion. We probably will finish today about 5:30. And so we're still on schedule as we were before. Let's give the panelists a hand, please. Let's give Taylor Brown and Khalil Morris a hand, please. Let's give yourself a hand for laboring with us, please. All right. Last thing, we didn't get to Miss Rowland. She didn't get an individual question, but Miss Rowland has agreed to be the keynote speaker, student speaker for next year. And she dropped the Lil Wayne bomb, even though I'm not a Lil Wayne fan. And just to show you what this is about. It ain't never about me. It ain't never about nobody but whoever want to do the work. I'm not a Lil Wayne fan, but she wants to talk about Lil Wayne and how he talks about religion. And so we're going to work on that project starting now all the way until next year. And so by the time you see her again, she will be the keynote speaker for 2017. So enjoy the rest of your day, and we hope that you'll come back. Thanks. Peace.
I don't have a problem with that. You got to say that's what you want.